Saving Sloths. See how one family is saving orphan sloths by Brenna Maloney.
It began with a knock on the door. When Judy Arroyo answered, she found 3 girls on her doorstep. One of the girls held a small bundle. Avi Arroyo gently pulled back a corner of the bundle. A tiny face stared up at her. It was the bundle. Oh wait, no. Fuzzy with large eyes. Clearly it belonged to a baby. But a baby what? It turned out that the bundle was a baby sloth. Avi Arroyo did not know it then. But this sloth would change her life. Meeting a sloth. The girls told her that the baby sloth was an orphan. A car had struck its mother. The girls brought the baby to Avi Arroyo. She seemed kind. Maybe she could care for the orphan. Avi Arroyo was from Alaska. She had moved to Central America with her husband. There they owned a small hotel. She had never seen a sloth before. She knew she had to do something or it would die. The baby was too young to be left on its own. She took the bundle from the girls and promised she would do all she could.
Baby Buttercup. Avi Arroyo carefully unwrapped the bundle to see the baby. The sloth reached up for her. She leaned forward and the sloth wrapped its arms around her neck. The sloth was so tiny, Avi Arroyo named her Buttercup. She studied the sloth. Buttercup had a white forehead and bands on her eyes. Her gray and brown fur looked wiry, but it was very soft. Buttercup had a short body. Her arms were nearly twice as long as her legs. She had 3 sharp, curved claws on her front paw. There was no way to know how old this orphan was. Buttercup's mouth was full of tiny teeth. Maybe that means Buttercup was an old, even enough to eat solid food. Avi Arroyo knew that wild sloth lived in Cecropia trees. These trees are common in Costa Rica. So she gathered some trees' leaves to see if Buttercup would eat them. Buttercup grabbed one leaf and studied it. She stuffed in her mouth and chewed. It must have tasted good because Buttercup grabbed the handful of leaves and ate them.
Keeping Buttercup. Avi Arroyo knew that it was no longer safe for Buttercup to be on her own in the wild. With her mother gone, there was no one to teach the sloth how to survive. Avi Arroyo, her husband, and her children would have to become Buttercup's new family. So far, the family had made some good guesses on what to do with the baby sloth. Yet, to help Buttercup, the family needed to know more about sloths.
Learning about sloths. So the family began researching sloths. They checked out every book they could find in their library about sloths. There wasn't much. Avi Arroyo's called the local zoo. Surely the zookeepers there weren't know how to care for sloths yet. The zookeeper said they didn't know much about sloths. Good luck, they told her. A nearby animal rescue center gave her the same answers. It seemed that the family was on its own.
part of the family. Buttercup needed a lot of care at first. Baby sloths stay close to their mothers, and Buttercup missed hers. She needed to be held often. Everyone in the family took turns carrying her around the house. Buttercup often dozed while clinging to family members. That's because she's nocturnal. That means she sleeps during the day and is awake at night. A sloth's creep is so strong it can hang on to trees or people, even while it sleeps. When she was awake, Buttercup was often hungry. Sloths are herbivores. That means they eat plants. They like leaves best, but leaves don't have a lot of nutrients. Leaves are also hard to digest. It could take a month or more for a sloth to digest a meal of leaves. Buttercup ate leaves, but also loved to eat flowers. The family would give them to her as a treat. Other types of sloths eat leaves, vegetables, and sometimes fruits. Hanging around. The Arroyo family watched Buttercup carefully. She didn't seem to do much, though. They worried that Buttercup might become a couch potato. She hung over the back of the couch and barely moved. They learned that this was normal for sloths. Wild sloths spend most of their lives upside down, hanging from tree branches. They eat and sleep upside down. They're able to hang onto tree branches with their long, curved claws and strong arms. Sloths have more trouble on the ground. A sloth's legs are half as long as its arms. This makes walking on its legs awkward. To move forward, it pulls itself by its arms. The family built a place for Buttercup to hang. It was a woven chair that looked like a basket. It hung from the ceiling. It became Buttercup's favorite place. Sometimes she just sat in it, high off the ground. Other times she hung from it.
Sloth surprises. Evie Arroy read as much as she could about sloths. She learned that there are two main types of sloths. Buttercup is a three-finger sloth. There are also two-finger sloths. One day, Buttercup surprised Evie Arroy. Buttercup was hanging from her chair, but turned her head almost around all the way around without moving her body. Unlike most mammals, sloths have extra bones in their necks. These bones let them turn their heads without moving their bodies. This helps sloths survive in the wild. When a sloth looks out for predators, it doesn't want to make a lot of noise by moving around, so instead it only turns its head. Buttercup's fur was another surprise for the family. Her fur was covered in silk green algae. In the wild, algae grows on sloth's fur in thick clumps.
Hiding in plain sight. Living with the arroyos, Buttercup's algae soon disappeared. She had no need for it. Had she been in the wild, it would have been vital. Algae helps sloths hide. Predators have a harder time spotting them in the trees. Keeping hidden is important to sloths. That's because sloths are slow. They are perhaps the slowest animals on Earth, so they can't always escape predators. Their biggest threats are jaguars and harpy eagles. A sloth's main defense is to avoid being spotted. More sloths. In the wild, sloths are solitary animals. They live alone. For 2 years, Buttercup was the only sloth living with the Arroyo family. Then everything changed. A local bus driver knocked on the door. He was holding a baby sloth. This sloth was a two-fingered sloth. It had a fiery red fur. it was also an orphan. Word about Buttercup had spread. People knew that the Arroyo family had taken in Buttercup. They also knew that Abby Arroyo was becoming a sloth expert. It didn't take long before more orphans arrived. To help other sloths, the family created a sanctuary. An animal sanctuary is a place where injured or abandoned animals are cared for. The Arroyos took in all injured or orphaned sloths. The sanctuary. Now there were many more moths to feed. The family needed a small army of volunteers and staff to help care for the sloths. They used what they had learned from Buttercup to help the other sloths. They created a nursery for the youngest orphans. Here the babies drink goat milk each morning. Then they're taken outside for some fresh air and exercise. The staff built a sloth gym. That's where the baby sloths hang upside down and play. When the babies get tired, they are taken inside for naps. Then the older sloths take over the gym. Throughout the day, the staff feeds and tends to the sloths. The dangers they face. The Arroyos know that sloths face a lot of dangers in the wild now. These dangers are often caused by people. When people build cities and roads, they are damaged or destroy sloths' habitat. Chemicals from farms and factories can harm sloths. Power lines can shock sloths. Reckless drivers can hit sloths. The Arroyo family has taken in as many sloths as they can. So far, they've rescued more than 500 sloths. Of these, about 150 live at the sanctuary and will never return to the wild. Most of these came to the sanctuary when they were babies. They were separated from the mothers. Now they can live in the wild. Some sloths only visit the sanctuary. They come they're sick. They're sick or injured. Many of them heal and get well. When they are stronger, they are released into the wild.
Road to recovery. Abby Arroyo thinks that caring for injured and orphaned sloths is important work. Yet for her, there are still many unanswered questions about how sloths survive in the wild. Her work is changing to include more sloth research. Buttercup has lived with the Arroyos for 21 years. She met everyone who comes to the sanctuary, and visitors aren't likely to forget her. With her slow and gentle way, she helps teach people about sloths. They learn how important it is to protect the rainforest habitat where she and the other sloths live.